tell me, why is it important for sales professionals, especially for sales professionals or for anyone to be on video and to practice their craft on video as much as possible? I know you do this a lot, and maybe it has to do with confidence, but tell me, what's your take on that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, when we think of a sales rep and we think of like, the life cycle of a sales rep, what a lot of sales reps have the misconception of is that, they're selling a product, they're selling a service, but that's not the case. What we're always doing in sales is we're selling ourselves. And
Hmm.
by being in front of the camera, what I'm simply doing is I'm simply honing my craft. I'm honing the gift of gab, we'll call it, even further than, I already have as a natural salesperson. Right? What it does is it gives you that structure and it also makes you more comfortable when it comes to difficult conversations, right? Like if you were to interview somebody, Felix, there who has never been on camera, as opposed to somebody who has been on camera every single day, who is able
Yeah,
to, just pretty much just spit the facts out as soon as the camera's turned on. That's
yeah,
essentially that's essentially like, the biggest separator right there, right? The
yeah,
importance of being on video is because it simply goes right into branding, right?
yeah,
When I'm on video and I am, giving people the actionable sales tips that I'm giving every single day, right? I used to post about 3 videos every day across 6 different platforms, right? And the reason why I did that is so people can get familiar with my face, they can get familiar with me. And in addition to that, it makes me a face and positions me as a quote unquote authority in the field, right? If
yeah.
I'm able to get on the camera and I'm able to be the face of the brand, then that's everything for me because that's how people kind of find you, right? It's important to be readily available because if you're not out there in the mix, how do you expect people to find you?
Joseph, welcome to my show, Leadership and Personal Branding. I know you are the right guy to close the deal, and today the entire audience will be enjoying your process for how to close a deal. So, Joe, before we start, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Absolutely. First and foremost, thanks so much for having me, man. Definitely a big fan of the show. I've watched pretty much every episode you have. So just really quick, my name is Joseph Roberts, founder and CEO of Close with Joe Solutions. I am a sales trainer and a sales coach who does actionable sales training for corporations of all sizes, businesses, and individuals as well. Basically, come into the game with a new approach of relationship centric sales, just to highlight the importance of how crucial it is to treat prospects like a human being as opposed to just another sales pitch. So that's just a brief introduction. Can't wait to get into it with you.
Thank you, Joe. You are working on a very important problem, building relationships, and especially in sales. And if I don't feel like we're in good relationship with you in business, I'm not going to do business with you. So you are helping people do that. So I know you also teach people about sales performance, a customer-facing business. I want to ask you, how do you define your personal brand, and what problem does it solve in terms of sales professional environment?
Absolutely. No, 100%. So, definitely a great question to lead with. I mean, my brand definitely represents, confidence, relationships, modern sales mastery while being bold and instantly recognizable. So that's essentially how, my brand is represented, right? It's all represented on the relationship focus. It's basically the epitome of kindness in sales. And that's essentially how I like to lead. Definitely off of kindness and, off of confidence and off of building those relationships.
Is it both relationship and kindness?
I mean, in the sales world, right, you kind of got to figure they both go hand in hand, right? Without effective relationship, right, building the relationship starts somewhere. And I truly believe that it all starts with kindness, right? The ability to be able to open up to somebody on a personal level and just being genuine kind. You know what I mean? Just,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, whether it be providing a compliment, whether it be,
yeah.
enjoying the conversation, asking about their day, just making people feel that, you're relatable and, in turn, you're kind. I believe that that makes the conversation open up a lot further.
Yeah, and I think you remind me of someone very a celebrity that is very focused on kindness. Do you know who that is by chance? Gary V.
I was gonna say Gary Vee, yeah.
Okay, I know. All right. Gary posts about kindness all day. That's all he posts about. And it's it's so true. And I know he's also focused on the sales side. So with kindness, people will notice it and they will say, this guy is kind to me.
Yeah.
And you keep showing your kindness. And that's how you build relationship. So I agree with you on that. So talk to me. I know from your experience in sales, you have you done door-to-door knocking before?
I actually, that's how I started my sales journey. I did about 7 years of door knocking.
So tell me about door-to-door knocking and how that taught you about kindness.
Absolutely. That's an excellent question. And the biggest misconception people have when it comes to, we'll call it door-to-door sales, is, it's just like you're walking aimlessly, going door to door, knocking and getting doors slammed in your face, right? Although that is true in some cases, what door to door really taught me about kindness is was the adaptability factor. It was basically being able to go from door to door and trying to figure out a way to not get that door slammed in my face in the first 30 seconds. And what I realized is leading with kindness and leading with building a relationship is something that allowed those doors to open as opposed to those doors closing. If you think about a door to door sales pitch, you basically see the average rep who knocks on the door. They start it off. Hi, my name is so and so. I'm from so and so company, and this is what I'm here to do. That never worked for me, and that usually doesn't work for anybody else, right? If you start off the conversation with kindness, building that relationship, like I said earlier, right? Hey, how's it going today? How's your day? Wow, you look great today, right? Love the home, love the decor. There's little things, right? Little certain words that you can tie into that initial interaction that really gets that door to open up as opposed to close in your face.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. And you remind me of you should look up this one. It's a Toastmasters World Championship, and Rory Vedden has a speech, a 7 minute speech about how he went door to door knocking, and every time he knocked on the door, they slammed the door on his face,
Yeah,
and they kept slamming the door, and he never gave up until he met somebody who believed in him. So that's a very good Toastmaster speech. If you want to, for salespeople who want to watch it, it's a very good speech and it's very emotional also and funny at the same time. So yeah, so tell me. Okay, through the door-to-door knocking, kindness is a big factor. How do you close a deal? How do you close a deal on a door-to-door knocking? Because I know when they show up to my door, I usually think this is another guy trying to sell me something else. I'm also not interested yet. These guys are going to strangers' homes. So how
exactly.
should somebody approach that with your brand?
It really all depends on, I guess you can say, what you're selling, right? To an extent.
Yeah,
That kind of changes the way, you're going to approach the situation and I guess ideally what you're trying to accomplish. Now, I would say this kind of the step-by-step process for door-to-door sale is to obviously start with curiosity.
yeah,
Curiosity, as everybody knows, opens the door for more conversations, right? If you lead with a question, usually you're going to get more out of them. Just like on this podcast, right? We can do this as social proof, we'll call it, right? You ask
yeah.
me a question, and what happens is I open up and I start telling you things. It's the same thing in door to door sales. When we're position ourselves as an advisor, what we do is become a trusted advisor. So by knocking on that door and just saying something like, "Hey, how's it going today? Beautiful. I actually really love your car. I noticed it's a, Ferrari, we'll say,
Yeah,
very, very nice. You definitely hit a certain status in life. What
yeah.
we're doing is we're stroking the ego, is what we'll call it. But what we're doing is we're also building a relationship and building that trust in order for that conversation to go a lot further. What a lot of sales reps and a lot of even sales trainers and coaches kind of miss is that the first 30 seconds of that interaction is the most important part of the interaction. And I'm talking for any industry. It doesn't matter if you're door to door, if you're face to face, if you're over the phone, if you're it doesn't really matter. if you can get past that first 30 seconds, which is the disconnect zone in any conversation, that's the ideal sauce to get you through to the next natural step. So the step-by-step process for door-to-door sales, right, is simply just like you start the conversation off with curiosity. You build the rapport based off of the relationship, the information that you find out, and then you just switch into some effective questioning that allows them to self-identify the need for your service. What I mean by that is simply, it could be anything, right? Like, let's say we're selling internet services door to door, right?
Yeah.
What's one thing about internet that people really, really rely on? The fact that it's reliable. You have to
Yeah.
have a great connection in case you're working from home, your kids are playing games, whatever the case is. You have to have a reliable network. So,
Mm-hmm.
one thing for, we'll say, the telecommunication games that really, really is effective is complimenting the car in the driveway and then asking them why they purchased that car. What we're
Mm-hmm.
doing here is basically triggering a psychological effect for them to dig deeper and tell us their buying intentions without us having to poke and pry even further. It's just a
Yeah.
natural conversation. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if I were to go to the door and I were to say something like, hey, really love that car in the driveway. I noticed it's a Honda. Did you buy that Honda based off reliability or because the way it looked? Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
actually bought it because of reliability. Excellent. Now I know that you're someone that values reliable service. So that's how I'm going to position my product.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you. And there is also some element of repetition. You ever knocked on the same door twice, three, 10 times, and they still welcomed you all the time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it goes back to that 30-second connection, right? It's almost like if you meet somebody for the first time, let's say you're at an event, let's say you're at anywhere, right? You're out, you're at the store, whatever the case
Mm-hmm.
is. When somebody walks up to you and introduces themselves, the way they introduce themselves is the way
Yeah.
that we remember them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically with door-to-door sales, that's the trick right there is if you're knocking, right? When I was doing door-to-door sales, I would never walk up and do boom, boom, boom. We'll call it a police knock, right? I
Mm-hmm.
would go up there and maybe, try and play a rhythm on the door. So that way that, it's a fun interaction, right?
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that if we're on the topic of door-to-door sales, right? Everybody thinks that door-to-door sales is painful. It's a
Yeah.
painful game. You're
Yeah.
you're grinding, you're walking, you're talking, you're knocking. I mean, it can be for sure if you don't know how to effectively get those prospects on your team, we'll call it.
Yeah. And based on your brand, what problem do most sales professionals face, and how do you help them solve it?
No, 100%. So, I mean, the biggest issue that I see from sales reps from any industry and really any product, any service that they're selling is they don't detach from the outcome. And what I mean by that is they I guess you can say they lack the confidence and it ruins the entire process when you're focused on and fixated on the outcome. The outcome meaning the yes or the no. Am I going to sell this product or am I not? Right? If you go into the sales endeavor and you're, oh, I got to hit my quota. I have to hit product. I have to sell this in order to get paid. I have to. Your customer is going to smell that, pressure.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
that pressure is what's going to make them fold, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When we think about like life, they say, pressure makes diamonds. And I definitely agree with that. You don't fold
Mm-hmm.
under pressure. But
Yeah.
in sales, it's quite the opposite. In
Yeah.
sales, pressure gets that sales resistance. And once you have sales resistance, you're not going to be able to move any further.
Yeah.
So
That's why they say pressure-free persuasion. Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly it, right? And that's the biggest problem that I fix in this industry is giving the confidence back and allowing people to just have a natural conversation which naturally leads to the next step, which is closing. Because once you've built massive trust and you've built massive rapport,
Mm-hmm.
moving forward with you doesn't seem like a sales pitch. It just seems like you're there to help, you're there to do what's intended to be done. And that's how things become a lot easier.
Yeah. And especially the way I've seen all your video posts. I've seen how you post every day. None of them is text based. It's fully on video, and
Yeah.
I can see the confidence. So tell me, why is it important for sales professionals, especially for self professionals or for anyone to be on video and to practice their craft on video as much as possible. I know you do this a lot, and maybe it has to do with confidence, but tell me, what's your take on that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, when we think of a sales rep and we think of like, the life cycle of a sales rep, what a lot of sales reps have the misconception of is that, they're selling a product, they're selling a service, but that's not the case. What we're always doing in sales is we're selling ourselves. And
Hmm.
by being in front of the camera, what I'm simply doing is I'm simply honing my craft. I'm honing the gift of gab, we'll call it, even further than, I already have as a natural salesperson. Right? What it does is it gives you that structure and it also makes you more comfortable when it comes to difficult conversations, right? Like if you were to interview somebody, Felix, there who has never been on camera, as opposed to somebody who has been on camera every single day, who is able
Yeah,
to, just pretty much just spit the facts out as soon as the camera's turned on. That's
yeah,
essentially that's essentially like, the biggest separator right there, right? The
yeah,
importance of being on video is because it simply goes right into branding, right?
yeah,
When I'm on video and I am, giving people the actionable sales tips that I'm giving every single day, right? I used to post about 3 videos every day across 6 different platforms, right? And the reason why I did that is so people can get familiar with my face, they can get familiar with me. And in addition to that, it makes me a face and positions me as a quote unquote authority in the field, right? If
yeah,
I'm able to get on the camera and I'm able to be the face of the brand, then that's everything for me because that's how people kind of find you, right? It's important to be readily available because if you're not out there in the mix, how do you expect people to find you, right?
yeah, yeah. Tell me, Joseph, I know in one of your videos you received 535,000 impressions.
Yeah.
And I watched that video and I saw actually it was unique. I was going to like email you back or like contact you back. I saw a small difference from the other videos.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember the topic. I want you to, if you remember, you can tell them the topic or even the same thing that you mentioned in that, and you are teaching them how to close deals or be proficient in their sales professional. So in one day, one of your videos, out of all your videos that you've been posting, this one received 535,000 impressions.
Yeah. That was it was a nice thing to wake up to. We'll say that. We'll say that
Yeah,
to say the least.
yeah,
And what that video was about was essentially the mindset of a salesperson, right? It was what to do when you hear no and what the separator was. And basically, that there, it goes back to the outcome, right? When people are attached to the outcome, when they're attached to that yes or that no, am I going to get the sale? Am I not going to get the sale? It makes things high pressure. It folds the sale. It goes nowhere. But if you're able to use no as, okay, great, now we can really get started, right? You need to get that no out of the way before you can finally, transition into a yes. So that video there was basically just reminding sales reps like, hey, you don't give up when you hear a no. The mindset shift that separates the guys who make the big dollars, the top earners, the 7 figure earners every single month, who are at the top of their company, the top of their game, is that when we hear the word no, that's when we know that it's really time to get started. Whether it be
yeah,
a price objection, whether it be, I don't have time for this, whether it be anything, because when we hear those types of responses, what we're able to do as experienced sales reps, which is, what I train, is we're able to really elaborate off of that no and get to the deeper issue by using some expansion questioning. So, for example, this is just some, I guess, free game for the viewers because that's what I do in all my videos.
yeah,
It's something like, right, if you have an objection and let's say it's the price objection, right, and they say, oh, no, it's too expensive, it's simply a reframe, right? Now, when we hear no, we go, oh, yeah, totally understand. It is a lot of money, isn't it? Now, if I were to take money out of the equation, would you still do this? Yeah, for sure. Well, why
hmm,
would you do it if it was free? And then they're going to tell you, well, this is, I love the service. I think it's this. I think it's that. Okay, excellent. So now that you've told me X, Y, and Z, what do you feel like is the responsible next step to do? Right? It's simply just guiding them through a series of questioning and building that relationship throughout there so that way you understand them, you understand where they want to end up, and you really get to the I guess, the biggest separator. Because the biggest thing there, right, when we're dealing with price objections, is price is only an issue when value isn't present, right? If you
Hmm.
want something so bad, you'll find the money. You'll find a
Yeah.
way to get what you want to get, right? As
Hmm.
humans, that's what we do. We are attractive people, right? We look at something, we want it, we're going to do what we can to get it, right? I think
Yeah.
about sales as like, let's say, like, losing a loved one or something like that, right? It's like when you lose somebody like that, you will do anything to get them back.
Yeah.
And that's essentially just like sales, right? If you have something that is so irresistible and so valuable, we'll call it, there's no reason why there should be a price objection or any kind of objection, because if people really want it, they're going to do anything they can to get it, right?
Yeah. And I like this statement that you said. Price, I'm just paraphrasing. Price is nothing in the absence of value. Price is nothing in the absence of value. I think that's a uh good mantra to go by. And I agree with you when we are fixated on the end on the outcome more than the journey,
Yeah,
we are disappointed when we fail. So if you
100%.
go door knocking the first time, I'm just using the door knocking because
Yeah,
a lot of people can relate to it in
yeah,
sales side.
big time.
And a lot of the viewers here will actually relate to it. They like the door knocking people. I know they don't like them, but then that's a challenge for the salespeople. They know
Exactly.
already, they know that they're not liked in this. They even put signs, no soliciting. Yeah, how
Yeah.
do you overcome the no soliciting sign? I just remember that my wife wants us to install one.
So honestly, man, be careful with that one, because
Yeah.
what I usually notice is the people that have the no soliciting sign are 90% of the time the nicest people, and they will always open the door for a conversation. Now,
Hmm.
if you get to a house and you see something like no soliciting, but then they have a beautiful welcome mat, I'm confused, right? I knock on
Yeah.
that door and,
Yeah,
I
you
knock
said
on that.
welcome.
Exactly, right? I don't know if you're telling me to stay away or if you're telling me to come on in, right? So I figured I'd come here and just spark up a conversation. And the same
Yeah.
reaction that you gave me there, Felix, that's literally what happens 80% of the time. I knock on the door and I'll acknowledge that right away. I will definitely acknowledge that. Hey, look, I noticed that you had a no soliciting sign, but there's also a welcome mat here. So
Yeah.
when I got up to your property, I was a little bit confused. This is a push and pull kind of situation, right? I'm just
Yeah.
helping a lot of the neighbors today. Figured I would do the same thing for you. This isn't a solicitation because I'm actually not here to sell you anything. I'm just here to give you some value if that's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good way to icebreaker. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, right? Just some free value for the viewers, right?
And you made me laugh, so I'm sure the guys opening the door will also see it as funny. So
Of course,
yeah,
exactly, right?
yeah, I think I've I have a few friends. I also have so I've told you about the Toastmasters guy
Yeah.
who has a speech about door-to-door knocking and slam, and everybody was on his face. People spit on his face. People slam the door. They curse him, and he kept going. I
Yep.
also have another friend who did the same thing. And through that process, actually, they land a business opportunity. Like
Yep.
they notice he studied the behavior of people as he was knocking on the doors. He studied the behavior of these people, and from there he came up with a with a company. And I think I don't know if I'm gonna say the company right, but the company is called Time Hero. So he's one of my
Okay.
friends who actually started um, a, a time hero company, which basically can. So if you are out in the field and you want to track time for the employee when they are on the field, but they are remotely, it's something that they log in and they can track their hours. And there's more to that. That's the limited knowledge I have on that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a very interesting. So during your process, during your sales process, has anything crossed your mind as a open gap in the market, and that's what you're solving? Is that how you go to what you're doing now? Or yeah, like tell me more.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, there's always going to be, ineffective training, right? Like one thing I've noticed is with sales reps, the facts are this, right? It's 80% of sales reps fold after the first year of their careers because of too much pressure. They're ineffectively trained. They don't know how to handle objections. They are basically just under the pressure of a sales manager who actually doesn't even sell anything. And
Hmm.
that's the biggest disconnect, whether it be in sales coaching, whether it be in actual organizations. The biggest disconnect is ineffective training because we've been conditioned to these corporate styles, the feel felt found method, all of these different things that have been so outdated. And what the corporations are failing to understand is that all of these sales tactics and all of these original sales stuff that has been going around for centuries and decades and literally forever, it's not only trained by the sales reps. The
Hmm.
customers that you are calling are also trained and conditioned to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So when you call somebody and they have an objection and you're like, oh, I totally understand how you feel. My other customers felt the same. They're going to be like, hey, don't triple F me right now. Get out of here. You know what I mean? They're going to
Yeah.
get angry because they also understand that, it's a sales tactic. It's a sales pitch and everybody hates to be pitched. So honestly, man, like the biggest thing that I guess you can say I solve is just the disconnect between improper training and proper sales training to get the job done, right? Like I don't teach outdated scripts or gimmicky sales tactics, right? I teach relationship first approach to close deals, right? The connection is built on human psychology and modern strategies, right? It's what today's buyers actually respond to, right? And it takes the whole stigma out of, salespeople have to chase their prospects, have to chase all these people, right? My coaching goes into way deeper than that, right? We take away all of the corporate stuff that never worked to begin with. And we basically build a foundation and build up from that foundation to have a successful kind of operation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, and you are the right messenger for that because, like, I think I did some research on what you are doing, and I know when we first connected, you actually, we've never met, and we were able to talk and connect well more than most people have. Yeah, like more than my friends who have been there for years
Yeah,
on LinkedIn. So you were able to, I can relate to what you're saying, and I think I put here in my notes, and it's also on your profile. There is over 12 years of experience across diverse industries, and I see you have experience in solar cells, automotive cells, telecommunications, insurance, basically life health and all that, and advertising solutions. And you've in your business, you're helping people to master cold calling, acquisition, door-to-door sales, and B2B and B2C sales also, and face-to-face sales techniques. And I think
yeah,
I can see the face-to-face sales technique even from this conversation and also from your video. And
right.
you said disconnection. I think you mentioned confidence earlier. You're helping them with confidence, but also without the confidence, there is a disconnect, and that's what you are helping them with in terms of uh, fear of rejection. And I listed a few here, and you have it also: low confidence, weak communication skills,
Yeah.
and so yeah. So there's a lot there. Is there anything that stands out from what I've read or what you want to know for somebody to be the best sales performance?
100%. So, I mean, the reason I got into this industry and the reason I built Close with Joe Solutions is basically to show people that sales isn't about convincing, it's about connecting, right? So, my mission at Close with Joe is basically to help people sell with confidence, transform their income, and ultimately impact their lives for the better, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why, I coach, train, and advocate for sales education. It's a skill that changes everything,
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like I've pulled my family out of difficult financial hardship, right? Like things weren't always so pretty for me on the back end, right? I come from, lower class poverty. Never had much, was skipping meals, right? But what happens is, sales and the skills that I acquired through genuine connecting with people, that is what changed my life entirely. I'm able to effectively communicate my feelings and my emotions and elaborate even further, right? So for me, sales is not just a skill that makes me money. Sales is a skill that helps me in every aspect of my life, right? Because when
Mm.
we think of when we think of sales, the first foundation that we have to have in any sales endeavor is effective communication. And effective communication translates and correlates directly into everyday life, right? Every single day life, right? Whether it be with your spouse, with your children, with, anywhere, right? Effective communication is what holds everything together. And that's definitely, I guess, the biggest takeaway is a lot of sales trainers, sales reps, right? They go into, hey, look, I'm going to do a master class, or here's a book of questions to ask. But the thing is this, is if we don't have a foundation, right? It's like building a house. If the house doesn't have a solid foundation, it's not going to hold the structure as we build up, right?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing in sales. And the biggest thing that I focus on is the power of effective communication and how to leverage effective communication to connect with people as opposed to convince people. Because nobody likes to be convinced, they like to be connected with and guided towards a proper decision, right? So that's the whole focus of what I do.
Yeah. You touched on this a bit, and this is, maybe I did not ask you this one offline when we were preparing, and you kind of touch on it. And this is important when building a brand or your reputation for your target audience to even know who you are. So I was going to ask, is there a backstory of your drive or your ambition or your in and what you experience through sales, and why, what keeps you going every day?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So, I mean, kind of, I guess, circling back to where we were there, right? I don't come from money. I don't come from quote unquote success. I come from a
Hmm.
very closed-minded family, right? Living in poverty their whole life. They didn't really see any kind of way out of that. I grew up, I was, an overweight, shy kid, wasn't able to effectively communicate really anything. And I'm not really sure what kind of switched, but I knew that I just needed to get my family out of the worst possible scenario. And how am I able to do that? How was I able to get that? I started my first door to door sales selling ties, door to door, like the tie that you're wearing right there. I would sell that door to door.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where everything started for me. I was like I said, I was an overweight, shy kid. I didn't have any direction of where to go or what to do. I just took the leap and I decided, hey, if I could get in front of people, no matter how I look, if I could get in front of people and just elaborate and be able to effectively communicate, I think that I can truly sell anything. And that was the driver for me, was that, the epitome of success for me was being able to effectively communicate who I am, where I come from, and where I want to end up. And that's exactly what sales did for me. That first door to door job that I had, I probably went 4 or 5 months without selling a thing. And it was all commission based. So if you
Yeah.
didn't sell, you didn't eat. And if you didn't eat, you're hungry. Your performance was lacking. Everything was lacking. So I went about 4 or 5 months in my first role selling ties door to door before I had a solid foundation. I didn't have anybody to train me. I didn't have a team leader, anything. I walked into an office, I had an interview, they handed me a bag full of ties and said, go ahead, have fun.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So I didn't have a direction, I didn't have anything, but
Yeah.
I knew that, if I was able to just sell one tie, if I could
Hmm.
sell one tie that day, I knew that I was able to go home and bring my family something.
Yeah.
Once I sold that first tie, you know how I sold that first tie? This is how I figured it out. I
Yeah.
walked up to the door and, like I said before, right? You knock on, like usual sales tactics and usual sales reps, they just walk up to the door and they'll be like, hey, my name is Joe, and I'm actually here from Ties Incorporated and I'm selling you some ties, right? They just slam the door. And I did that over and over again. Repetition. It was the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right?
Yeah.
And what changed for me ultimately was the more doors that I knocked on, the more conditioned I became to conversation, the more the more direction I had when it came to communication. when now that I knocked on the door, I knew that I had to have a direction to go in order to keep that person in front of me for just a little bit longer than the last door so that way I could get my point across. What happened was I kept knocking, kept getting doors closed, kept getting no's, kept getting no's. And then finally I said, okay, something has to give. And I'm not having fun anymore. So how do I have fun and how do I make this the less painful kind of job possible and still become successful? And then it clicked in my head. Relationships. If I'm able to gamify this and make it feel like I'm having the best time ever walking through this neighborhood selling everybody ties, then I feel like I could go a lot further. So what I started doing was knocking on the door. And when a male answered the door, I say, hey, my name's Joe. I'm actually just in the area today doing a brief competition. If you can tie your tie faster than me, I'll give you two for free. If you can't, you have to buy two. How does that sound? As men and as human beings, we're inclined to accept the
Yeah,
challenge, right?
yeah,
So that's basically what like the breakthrough was for me, man. It was just being able to, get through the trials and tribulations and be able to knock on those doors and get the no's and get no commission for months at a time. And just having that mindset of, hey, don't give up because there's something here. Don't give
yeah,
up, there's something here. And that's why I say that 1 year of door-to-door sales is equivalent to a 4 year communications degree in university, 100%. And the
mm,
reason why I say that and I'm so and advocate for that so well is because if you think about it, behind every single door that you're knocking is a different personality, is a different opportunity, and is a different way for you to handle that situation. And
yeah,
that's where the relationship centric approach comes in so heavy because you don't sell the same way to Joe as you sell to Felix. You don't do that, right? You sell to
yeah,
Felix a certain way based off of what makes Felix tick. And
yeah.
it could be anything, like literally
Hmm.
anything. The color of your tie, if you have kids, if I notice you have a nice lawn, right? It could be literally anything that just gets you to open up and connect with me as a human being. And
Hmm.
that is we'll call it the epitome of success in sales is just being
Yeah,
able to be yourself, have a great time, and effectively communicate what it is that's going on.
yeah. The book about how to win friends and
Yeah.
influence people,
Yeah.
Dale Carnegie. I think one of the laws talks about throwing a challenge in and you set up the challenge there. I forgot the exact line, but throwing a challenge and in this case, the mind doesn't want to give up and they want to participate in the challenge that you give them. And you created
Exactly.
a connection. And through your sales performance strategy, you are able to build relationship, build trust, and connect more with people. There's this question that gets asked all the time. What keeps you up at night? And I actually think when people respond to to these questions, all they can think of the first things is negative things, fear, like what type of fear is in front of them now, what type of problem, what type of obstacle. So that's where the mind goes the first time. So I challenge people to reframe that, and every night they can let their mind wander to something that they aspire to or they look forward to that can take them to a happy place, something in alignment with their vision. And so whatever questions comes up, they can still answer it, but they are in alignment with their vision. So tell me, I know in sales professionals environment, there is a pressure of the end outcome, like you mentioned earlier, like the outcome. There's the numbers that you have to hit. So how do you cope with that expectation and this question about maneuvering through this question about what keeps you up at night? Is that clear?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So, I mean, like in sales, obviously, it's a tough game, right? Sales can be a tough game if it's not done effectively, right?
Hmm.
Um, and that's basically the biggest thing, right? Something that I guess you could say something that keeps me up at night is excitement, Felix, honestly. And the
Yeah.
reason why I say that is because this industry and this world that I'm in is exciting. Like, I have kids, I have a family, right? So it all ties into it. Like being able to be that leader for my family, being able to, have that effective communication gene in me so that way I can pass it down to my kids and never have to worry that they're not going to be able to, express their
Mm,
feelings or be heard in a room, right? So
yeah.
it's honestly excitement, man. It keeps me up at night all the time because it's it's like the arithmetic of purpose if you think about it, right? The
Hmm.
arithmetic of purpose is first you find out what you're good at, and then you figure out how to help as many people as you can with what you're good at. And that
Hmm.
is your purpose. So
Yes, exactly.
my my purpose, it keeps me up at night, man. The excitement of just being able to change the world through effective communication and relationship building, right? It's
Hmm.
like imagine like what I tell my sales reps and people that I train is like imagine starting every conversation with someone cold, just like me and you did, and making it feel like you've known them for literally ever.
Yeah.
That's the effectiveness of effective communication and relationship building and the excitement of it, man. The whole process, like that's literally what keeps me up at night because I found my purpose and I know that I can help so many people gain the skills and pull themselves out of similar situations that I was in when I was younger. um
Yeah.
Ultimately, man, that's excitement is what keeps me up at night 100%.
I think that's a powerful response to what keeps you up at night? Excitement of my purpose.
Yep.
And it's short and clear, and I think it's most likely to even bring more connections to the people that when you are trying to sell something and you ask that question for me, and then you can say, for me, what keeps me up at night is excitement of my purpose. What about you?
Yep.
And you go there with you can sell them 10 ties instead of two. So
Exactly, right? Exactly. That's
yeah,
exactly it.
yeah, I like what you say about your family. That's a clear vision for me also in the future. Yeah, so we have to set up for the next generation.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
next question I want to ask you about is about your personal brand symbol. So how do you have a personal brand symbol, and how do you use it every day in your life? Tell me.
100%. 100%. So I do actually have, two kind of universal symbols for my business. The main one that I do like to use is the power handshake. And that's like, it could be, just the emoji or even the symbol in life where I'm extending my hand, right? And the reason why I use that as my brand symbol is because it represents so many things. It represents a commitment, it represents a relationship, and it represents a deal closed. And those are the three things that my brand exactly focuses on. It focuses on the confidence, it focuses on the connection, and it focuses on getting the job done. Right. So that power handshake for me is a big one. And then of course we got the closing check mark, we'll call it, right? The closing check mark. The check mark for that is like, it's simple, right? It could be tied into anything, right? The check mark is the simple positive affirmation that, hey, it's a job well done. You've gotten what you've needed to do, and there's a check right through it. Like you are correct, right?
Mhm.
That's essentially like the two brand, symbols that I do have for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful brand symbol, and I think I saw your logo, and I can see the arms wrapped around close with Joe naming brand and
Yeah,
a handshake. I think that's part of what you are showing.
exactly.
And you said it represents commitment, closing deals, and I missed one of them.
It represents commitment, closing deals, and the connection, the relationship.
Connection. Yeah, connection, commitment, and closing deals. And then the other one that goes with it is, of course, once the hands disconnect, there's a check mark that goes with it that everybody is in alignment. Tell me how it guides you every day, that symbol or that expectation.
100%. So I mean, it's basically everything when it comes to sales, right? I mean, everybody wants to have that sales endeavor. They want to have that sales approach where the ending result is a handshake. We've done the deal. I'm definitely decided to go with you. That's basically, the power behind it. In addition to that, right? Nobody shakes hands with somebody they don't like, right? So when you shake somebody's hand, it establishes that connection, it establishes that relationship, and it positions you as somebody who's done a service, not a disservice, but a service. And then
Mm.
we get into the check mark, right? So after we've shaken the hand and the deal has been done, much like you said, that check mark is essentially the alignment, is that reassurance that things are okay, things are great, you've made the right decision, right? And
Yeah.
in addition to that, what it is for me is the check mark. That's the prospects, vision of it. And then for me, with that check mark for me is the affirmation that I've done my job effectively, right? I've built the relationship, I've built the connection, and I've ethically given this person exactly what they need. And delivered it to them on a silver platter, we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
That's basically what the two kind of mean to me, definitely.
Yeah, and to your point earlier about people thinking about the outcome mostly, and when they fail, then it becomes depressing for them. For you, you're looking for these small signals, handshake and a check mark, handshake and a check mark. Every day, you are looking for handshake and a check mark. And basically, it's commitment, and then connection, closing deals, check mark. Commitment, connection, closing deals, check mark. And those are the different milestones that go through your mind every
Yeah,
day. And as long as you are achieving those, the outcome will come by
yeah,
itself. So yeah, I
exactly.
think I think that's a great one to great symbol to guide you through your daily life. I think based on your brand. Yeah, maybe I don't know if there's element of kindness there too. You mentioned kindness earlier and relationships. Yeah.
Of course. Absolutely. I mean, the kindness just comes naturally, right? The kindness is how you kind of build the relationship and cut through the noise, right? Everybody can walk up and be fake, but I feel like authenticity and being able to really, lead with kindness, as Gary Vee says, right? Kindness is it's the most underpriced form of appreciation is just kindness, right? It's free.
Hmm.
It doesn't cost you a thing to be kind. It doesn't
Yeah.
cost you anything to just actually care about somebody, right?
Yeah.
And that's what goes into the ethical sales portion, right? Like a lot of sales reps have this persona. The sales game has this image portrayed about it like, hey, sales guys are scammers. They're just about their commission, they're just about their quota, not
Yeah.
realizing there are actually sales reps out there, the ones that I train heavily to
Hmm.
really focus on the relationship and identifying the need that you have for this service, right? If you don't have a
Yeah.
need for the service, we don't sell the service. We don't just
Yeah.
sell things to everybody because we need to hit quota. That's not the way the game works, right? I truly believe that, you can actually lessen your quote unquote law of average if you're able to have effective communications and have those proper communication and good conversations that lead to an ethical result, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Is there for in terms of your symbols that you have, how do they also, so that's in terms of your professional life, but do they have any connection also to your personal life and how you use it outside of work also?
100%. So I mean, the same person that I am at work is the same person that I am in real life, right? I'm
Hmm.
I'm somebody who likes to connect. I'm somebody who likes to converse, and I'm somebody who is curious, right? I'm always about building connections, building my network, building new friends. I'm always about the opportunity, and those two symbols they correlate directly to my everyday life because I mean, like I said, the same person I am inside my business is the same person I am outside my business. And I feel like that holds me to a specific standard, right? I have a
Yeah.
standard that I hold myself to every single day in life. And that correlates directly into my business, right? Every day I strive to be the best that I can, not only for myself, but, for my kids, for my wife, for, my entire family, right?
Hmm.
And I definitely feel like those are skills that are transferable in sales directly, right? You have to hold yourself to a level of accountability, we'll call it, right? You have to hold yourself at a standard that is an approachable standard, that is one that is able to connect and one that's able to get the job done, right? So those symbols,
Hmm.
they directly correlate into my everyday life 100%.
Yeah, and that's what's most likely to make anyone like you a leader in this space. So that's that's when the brand extends beyond the professional life and also into the personal life. You create a good reputation with most people that you meet, and eventually it circles back into your business also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about the kind of training, if you can, maybe, I don't know how, maybe not too much details, but if somebody is interested in understanding your training that you go through, tell me a little bit of what they can expect from your training.
100%. So I mean, what I do is like I definitely I have the experience, right? And the testimonials now because I've been in the game for a little bit, but I mean, my sales coaching focuses on transformation, taking the sales rep that is, under a massive amount of pressure, who doesn't know how to get the job done, kind of thing, is taking that sales rep and turning them into a successful seven-figure earner. Now, the way I do this is because if you look at sales coaching as a whole, sales coaching fails when it's all theory and no application, right? But with my training, I do quite the opposite, right? My coaching is hands on, real world, and results driven, right? So every session is high impact with numerous techniques, right? We apply them immediately, right? I hold my clients accountable for execution. And
Mhm.
that's essentially what the game is, right? Like anybody could give you a script. Hey, here's a script. Go read the script. But if they don't teach you how to effectively communicate that script, it's just a bunch of noise. Like you'll see a
Mhm.
bunch of sales coaches in the game, for example, and they'll be like, "Hey, here's a book of questions, right? Just to say something like that, right? Here's a book of questions that you can ask your client. Okay, great. But if you don't know how to position those, and if you don't know where to insert said question, now it just seems like an interview for the client, and they're not gonna respond well to that, right? So when we talk about sales training, right, I cut through all of that noise of theory and I basically just do real world application, and that's what we apply. That's basically what contributes to the success of the people that I train is that it's real life scenarios, things that they're going to face every single day. It's not like a fake role play where it's like, hey, everything goes your way, everything's smooth. No, we go through a series of role plays. We go through a series of objection handling, Q&As. And I go through so many different things, right? I have one-on-one coaching. I currently train large corporations, right? Of 500 staff that I have to train each individual person. Um, I have, my community, the Closers Corner, right, where we do weekly coaching calls. I have so many different outlets and avenues for people to progress their sales and enhance their communication, which in turn, what creates the unstoppable sales rep is what we'll call it.
Yeah. And if you haven't used this yet, you should use it in your next training. What happens when you meet a no soliciting sign, but there is a welcome mat? Have you used that yet?
Of course. Yeah, we cover. I mean, I cover that usually for my door to door. Right? Door to door is a big one. I do train a company. They're called Tech Savvy. They
Yeah.
are American company, basically an AT&T reseller. So
Yeah.
I train them heavily, and that's basically one of the things that we cover. The biggest question that I get asked is, when people have those signs that says, "Hey, do not enter" or "no soliciting," but then there's a welcome mat. I mean, you just basically approach it as a confusion, right? Like, hey, man, like it's a push and a pull. I seen the no soliciting, so I didn't want to ring the doorbell, but the welcome mat was so welcoming that I had no choice, right? Like, and
Yeah.
it's okay
Again.
to and it's okay to
Mm.
have that, right? It's totally okay because when you knock on that door, like we'll call it 91% of the time, based off my experience and how many doors I've knocked on, which is probably like half a million by now, um, is basically just like if you're okay to lead with that curiosity and if you're able to be vulnerable in a sense and just open yourself up to that prospect, right? It's going to be like the reaction I got from you, Felix, when we first spoke about that. It's going to be a laugh. They're going to be like, you know what? You're right. What's going on? Yeah. And you know what? Actually, I'm not here to sell you anything. I was just helping out a lot of the neighbors in the area, was hoping I could do the same for you. My name is XYZ. This is now you're into that sales pitch, right? Now you're getting past that disconnect zone. And that's exactly what to do. I noticed that in door to door sales specifically, the people that have the no soliciting signs are the nicest people and the ones that are the most open minded to a discussion. As crazy as it sounds,
Yeah.
anybody watching this who's in door to door sales, give it a try. Knock on that door that says no soliciting. I can almost
Yeah.
guarantee you're going to walk away with a sale 100%.
As an engineer, I have a product in mind that can ruin that sales professional experience. I'll come up with a doormat that says you're welcome without as long as you're not soliciting. and they will be together right next to each other.
I love it. I
So
love it. You know what?
you have to find another way to do that because that product will be coming out soon.
And you know what? I would still knock. And the thing is this, right? Is like, even though I'm a door-to-door sales rep, right? You don't have
Yeah,
to buy from me, right? That option is yours. So by me knocking on that door, I would acknowledge the doormat. I would say like, hey, you know what? No soliciting, no problem. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just here to provide the highest level of service. The same thing I've done for Jim and Susan next door. You know Jim and Susan next door? Yeah, they actually sent me over here because they said you were really nice people to talk to. Is it okay if I
yeah,
take a minute? I'm not going to sell you nothing. Yeah, for sure. What's going on? Oh, well, I'm in the area actually with XYZ and we're selling, we're doing XYZ for the neighborhood.
yeah,
Have you looked into XYZ? But right, it's just a way to get past it, man. Honestly, like you're gonna find all those, we'll call them smoke screens everywhere because that's basically what they are, right? If a person's inside their house, they're in defense mode. They already have that, that sales resistance, right? Don't knock on my door if you're gonna sell me something, right? Those damn solar guys, right? Get out of here. It's honestly like if you just take every situation like you're not selling, you're there to help. That no soliciting sign becomes a distant kind of irrelevant factor in the sales pitch because
yeah,
again, you're not soliciting, right? Solicitation is a transaction, but consulting is assistance. They're two totally
yeah,
different things, right?
yeah. And I know we are on the personal brand symbol thing, and the reason why I'm emphasizing on these questions and these kind of obstacles is anytime the importance of a personal brand symbol is anytime you are faced with something unexpected that you are not thinking. It reminds you, it grounds you back to what you're supposed to be doing. So you
Yeah.
go, you meet whatever, and no soliciting sign. You remember your symbol. It's handshake, and it's commitment, and it's closing deals, and it's got the last one, the third one, closing deals, handshake, and commitment.
Yeah. So it was a connection, commitment, and closing
Yes.
deals.
Yeah. So then you just know that how can I build connection? How can I build commitment? How can I close deals? How can I get to the check mark? So that's the idea around every day remembering, picking something. I think for some people, for example, Simon Sinek his color is orange and he wears a orange wristband
Yeah.
and it's for positive thinking. Every time he feels that his day is being ruined by something and he looks at it, it brings him back to the right focus. And so that's what I read about it. Maybe he's changed his analogy on that. So tell me, during one of your trainings, have you met somebody that reminded you of yourself a few years back and how this one person, how what kind of connection you had with this person and how can you help more people just like that? That has that changed your approach in any way?
So honestly, like I like to think of myself as a chameleon, right? So I like to think of myself, and this is important for any sales rep to know as well, is what do chameleons do? Chameleons, they blend their color into any situation that's possible. Whether it's a dangerous situation, a safe situation, whatever the case is, they're able to blend into that, right? So my sales experience and who I am, and where I come from is a very kind of chameleon like story because I can relate it to any said person, right? When it comes to ineffective communication, I have that, right? When it comes to, not being able to, not having confidence, I had that, right? So basically every kind of avenue and we'll call it pain point that is presented by my client, so to speak, I can definitely relate myself and put myself in their shoes because I've been there. So I would say my approach is specifically tailored to honestly anybody who's facing any kind of difficulty, because I've faced every single difficulty in the game. And that's what I tell my students is, hey, I failed so you don't have to. Right?
Yeah,
That's basically the kind of like the sauce behind it is I failed so many times so that they don't have to. Now, one person, I guess I can, throw this out there. I'm sure he'll be comfortable with it, but his name was Amal, and Amal was a friend of mine. And Amal is a used car salesman. He was having a really hard time selling cars because what people like, in the car industry specifically, is even though people are coming to you and they're seeking a product, it doesn't mean that they're going to leave with that product. It's still up to you as that sales rep and as that individual to build that connection, build that relationship, build that trust in order to make them feel like this deal is the best way for you. So with my friend there, my friend was basically the same thing as me. He, was ineffective with his communication. He was too attached to the outcome. He was kind of more concerned about getting out of poverty than learning the skills that are actually gonna, help him in life, transfer those skills into life, into business, into whatever avenue. So when we basically got started, it was all about building that foundation. Like I said before, it's like building a house, right? You don't have that
Yeah.
solid foundation, you don't have a good structure, right? It's gonna
Hmm.
fold.
Yeah.
So all of my training focuses on having a solid foundation before we get into the fancy stuff. And what happened is, by building a solid foundation and teaching my friend about how relationships work, how to leverage the relationship in a sale, and how to
Hmm.
effectively communicate, my friend Amal went from making $1,200 a month to his first $10,000 a month. And he continuously does that to this day. And it's been about 7 to 9 months since I've trained him all. So
Nice. Yeah.
the, the skills are transferable, and it's really crazy to think that just by enhancing your communication skills and having a base foundation of ethics and a solid approach really gets you to that next level in the game, whether it be in sales or in life as a whole. And that's what I truly believe, is that, sales skills, they're not just to make you money. They're to
Yeah.
get you by in any aspect in life, whether it be relationships, whether it be, negotiating terms, whether it be, anything like that. Sales is the epitome of all of that.
Yeah, I agree. And coming from low thousands of monthly revenue to over 10,000 additional, that's a great payoff or benefit for somebody that goes through that program to gain that extra monthly. That's extra over 8,000 extra every month.
Exactly.
And you talk about the car sales business. One of my friends actually, they are is I went to school. They are two twins. I went to school with the two twins, but they're from Iran, and their father has a car business,
Yeah.
like used car sales business. And I bought my first car from him. It was nice guy, and my car
Yeah.
will break down. He will call me, and I'll call him, and then he will tell me to bring it, and he will fix it for me.
Yeah.
So I developed that relationship. I'll go to his office. I talk to his kids. We're in the same class. And so when there was one time there was a riot and people broke into his business basically during the George Floyd I don't know if you remember that time during the
Yeah.
George Floyd murder, then people were rioting on the street, and so people broke in into his shop and ruined a lot of things. So I think it can be depressing, especially when you're in sales, everything that you worked for, and then all of a sudden overnight everything disappears. So how do you deal with, do you have some types of training for people to deal with setbacks like that? Because people can, once that happens to some people, that can end their game. So tell me
Absolutely.
anything you want to comment on that?
Absolutely. And like, man, my sympathy goes out to your friend there. That's a terrible situation to happen. But I mean, it all comes down to the mindset, right? For myself, for example, like something that a lot of people don't know is I've actually rebuilt Close with Joe Solutions 3 times. I went under a cybersecurity attack. I lost access to a platform, and now I've rebuilt everything once again, right? And the the really, like, the thing that really people have to focus on is their purpose. It all ties into it, right?
Hmm.
There's always going to be hardships no matter what you do in life. Nothing in life is going to be just easy and is going to be handed to you, right? It's like when you're playing basketball at a professional level, for example. This is an analogy I love to use, right? In basketball, when you have that ball, there's never an open path. There's always a guy here, and you have to get past that. And the most
Yeah.
important thing to be able to remember to get past that is the ability of the pivot, right?
Hmm.
Is being able to pivot in this direction, pivot in that direction. And as entrepreneurs and as business minded individuals, that momentum that we have to get started is the same momentum that we need to carry over if we need to rebuild, if we need to rebrand, if we need to, because what happens is like I'm a man of faith, right? I believe in God, and I believe that everything happens for a specific reason. And if there is a setback, it means that it's your first kind of issue in order to get through to your breakthrough, right? If you're unable to effectively pivot and fix what's broken, how are we supposed to trust you to continue building that business, right? It's all about the mindset shift and keeping that momentum that you have to keep on building and keep on going regardless of the hardships, right? Like you may lose 10 today, but what you do today sets you up to make 20 tomorrow. And that's essentially the mindset that you have to have. So when it comes to like, specific training for, people with setbacks, it all comes full circle in the training, right? Like we go through that. We go through the setbacks, we go through the tribulations, we go through what if and why not, right? We go through all of that kind of stuff because like I said, when sales and stuff is all theory, when life is all theory and no application, that's
Hmm.
when we're quote unquote living the dream, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, the dream is nowhere to live, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You got to live in
Hmm.
reality, and reality is things go wrong. It's just important for you to prioritize, right? Because if everything is important, then nothing is, right? So
Hmm.
it's really important to be able to prioritize.
Yeah. When you say living the dream, for some people that's success, but there's also living the dream where you're just living the dream and not taking any action.
Living
So
the
yeah,
dream for me, like I find when people tell me they're living the dream, I'm like, okay, so you're living in delusion, right? That's
yeah,
basically what it is. Like, I'm glad that everything's going well for you, but like, have you planned for when things don't go well? Because the time's gonna come when things don't go well. Everybody knows it. That's just life, right? But it's
doomsday.
important,
Yeah,
exactly, right? It's important to just, stay positive, stay on top of what you're doing and be one step ahead, right? Because
yeah,
like I like to say, right, just to hit you with another quote, I'm full of quotes, is like, I don't believe in luck, right? In business, there is no luck. Luck is what
yeah,
happens when preparation meets opportunity. That's
yeah.
what luck is. And I
Hmm.
feel like in business and in life, everybody needs to quote unquote believe in luck, but understand that they build their own luck based off of preparation and where they meet their opportunity, right?
Yeah. And Tony Robbins will tell you that you have to seize the opportunity when they in the lifetime of the opportunity. You
Yeah,
have to seize the opportunity in the lifetime of that opportunity. So
exactly.
I agree with you. So I was gonna ask you this. What's the biggest deals you've closed?
Absolutely. So biggest deals I've closed would definitely be in the real estate game. Definitely, I closed property in the real estate game. It was $4.6 million. So the commission with that was pretty good at about a solid 3% commission. So I mean, do the math there. It was a big one. In
Hmm.
addition to that, though, I have had years where I've sold over $1 million in telecommunication products.
Hmm.
I've sold over, $6 million in life insurance policies and health insurance
Hmm.
policies. Honestly, I would say my biggest win would be definitely starting my business and just, helping people out. So when we talk about like revenue rich, I don't really like to get into revenue rich, right? Because I believe that, you're rich in your mind before you're rich in your bank account. And I've done well in the sales game. Of course, I've sold, probably billions of dollars worth of products by now throughout my entire course of the 12 years. But I would definitely say that, like, yeah, my biggest win, I would say, is starting this business and helping out as many people as I possibly can.
Yeah, that's very good. And you said 4.6 million. That's a hefty number. And anybody will be lucky to go through training and close similar deal.
100%,
Yeah.
man. 100%.
So if people want to find you, how can they find you? And how can they connect with you?
Of course, yeah. So I mean, pretty much on all platforms. LinkedIn, of course, you find me about my full name, Joseph Roberts. You can also type in "close with Joe," close like closing deals. Instagram and every other handle, you just at close with Joe. You can find me literally everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. in addition to that, if you want to look into some sales training, look into a little bit more about me and what I do, you can definitely head over to www.closewithjoesolutions.com and you can find everything you need there. Free resources, objection playbooks, holiday profits playbooks. I'm the guy for free resources and all things sales. So yeah, that's definitely where you can find me.
Yeah, I think that's how I found you too. I think that's how we connected on LinkedIn, and now we are connected on Instagram, and
Yep.
we'll see how it goes from there.